The following content constitutes a verbatim reading of every legal word contained within a publicly accessible, unsealed, and open court document. The reading may contain minor idiosyncrasies, such as mispronunciations or slight stumbles by the reader. It is important to note the document being read and the evidence being played and/or displayed is freely available to the public in its entirety. The purpose of this reading is solely to recite the words present in the transcripts without any alteration or interpretation of their meaning. All images shown are AI-generated and solely meant as a general representation of the people present in the courtroom. This reading is the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. Falsifying business records, first degree. These proceedings are from April 23, 2024, Part 59, afternoon session, and are a reciting of Manhattan District Attorney Joshua Steinglass's direct examination of National Enquirer publisher David Pecker. This reading is brought to you by everylegalword.com and begins on page 1081, line 23.
Do you know someone named Karen McDougal?
Yes, I do.
Who is Karen McDougal?
Karen McDougal was a Playboy model.
How did you first hear of her?
Dylan came to me in early June of 2016 and said that he received a call from one of his sources in California that there's a Playboy model who's trying to sell a story about a relationship that she had with Donald Trump for a year.
What kind of relationship?
Romantic relationship.
Did he say one way or another whether it included a sexual relationship?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. I apologize.
Sorry. Did Dylan Howard, when you first learned of this story, did Dylan Howard tell you whether or not the relationship that you described that Miss McDougal was referring to included a sexual component?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he told you?
He thought that. He didn't know at the time.
Okay. So, what did you do when you learned about Karen McDougal and her claims regarding Mr. Trump?
I called Michael Cohen, and I told Michael Cohen exactly what Dylan told me about this Playboy model and that she had a relationship. And immediately, I didn't even finish the conversation when he said, "That's untrue, that's absolutely not true." So I said, just wait a second, this is a little different. I said, I think that we should vet the story out first. So he thought, Michael Cohen said, "Yes, I think that's a good idea," he said. I said, "I'm going to speak to Dylan and I'll let you know what our next steps are going to be."
Did you discuss at that point payment for this story?
No, we did not.
What did you discuss in terms of the next steps?
Dylan, when I mentioned to him that I wanted to vet the story out, we should proceed on verifying it, he had a conversation with his source, who is an attorney who's representing this Playboy model. I did not know the name. I did not know any amounts. That's all I knew. So I told him to go to California, interview the model, the Playboy model, and let me know what the details are. I called back Michael Cohen and I told him what I was going to do. And I told him we would keep him apprised after Dylan went out and found out exactly what the details were.
Okay. So, just to clarify the pronouns, when you said you asked him to go out and interview the person, you asked who to go out?
I asked Dylan Howard. I asked Dylan Howard to go.
And did you tell Michael Cohen that you were doing that?
Yes, I called Michael Cohen and I told him exactly that.
Around this time, how often were you speaking to Michael Cohen?
I was speaking to him prior to this probably a couple of times a week. When this subject came up, this issue came up, I spoke to him much more frequently, almost every day, sometimes a couple of times a day.
Do you remember about when it was that you were having these conversations?
It was, as I recall, it was the first week of June.
Which year?
I'm sorry, 2016. 2016.
Did Michael Cohen ask you on occasion to communicate with him through any particular means?
Yes, Michael Cohen said to me that we shouldn't be talking like this over a landline. He said we should use Signal. I didn't really know what Signal was. I never heard of it before. He said it was an app. He explained to me that it was an encrypted app where nobody could trace it and that there's no paper trail and there's nobody that can listen into the conversations. And then the conversation apparently is destroyed after you have the call. I still, to this day, don't know if that's true or not.
Did you agree to use the Signal app to communicate with Michael Cohen from time to time?
I did. And every time I used it, it dropped off after like 30 seconds, but I would call back.
Did there come a time, did you ever come to believe that Michael Cohen had spoken to Mr. Trump about Ms. McDougal's claims?
Yes, I did.
Can you explain to the jury how you became to believe that?
I was in New Jersey at my largest investigator in American media making a business presentation, and their assistant for their office came in and said, "Donald Trump is on the phone for you." So I left to pick up the phone to speak to Mr. Trump. And he mentioned to me that he said, I spoke to Michael. He said, he told me about, he told me about Karen, and he said to me, what do you think? So I said after that, after Dylan Howard interviewed her, she claimed that she had an offer from ABC, Dancing with the Stars, for her story, and there was an offer from a Mexican group from what Mr. Trump told me was $8 million. And I said, no, I don't believe there was an offer for $8 million. It's my understanding she doesn't want her story published. And I think that the story should be purchased, and I believe that you should buy it. And Mr. Trump said to me, he said, look, he says, I don't buy any stories. And he said that anytime you do anything like this, it always gets out. So I said, I still believe that we should take this story off the market. And he said, let me think about it, and I'll have Michael Cohen call you back in a few days.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that conversation that you had with Donald Trump, but I want to go back to something you said before, which is you said that you dispatched Dylan Howard to go interview Miss McDougal.
Yes.
Where did you dispatch Dylan Howard to go?
He went to Los Angeles. He went to his source, who's this attorney. His name is Keith Davidson. He was representing this Playboy model. And Dylan Howard interviewed Karen for 2 to 3 hours.
Did you personally attend that meeting?
No, I did not.
Did Michael Cohen?
No, he did not.
Did you speak with Michael Cohen during Mr. Howard's interview of Ms. McDougal?
I told Michael it was a 2-week period of time. I told him if I had the date correctly, I think it was June 20th, that Dylan was going out to sit down and do the interview, and that he would call us when he was there. So by the time when I first discussed this with Michael Cohen, and to that time that Dylan actually went to California, I had multiple calls every single day. When is he going? When is he going to know? Is it done yet? It was all of these various different questions. And I said, just relax and wait until Dylan has the interview, and I'll call you as soon as I know.
I keep coming back to your pronouns because I want to make sure I know who you're talking about. Who did you have these multiple calls with? Who kept calling you and asking you about this?
I'm sorry. Michael Cohen kept calling me and asking me.
You said that the interview that Dylan Howard conducted with Karen McDougal was in Los Angeles on January 20th, is that right?
Yes.
Did you speak with Michael Cohen on that day during the time that Ms. McDougal was being interviewed by Dylan?
Yes. Michael called me to find out if I had heard from Dylan yet. I said no. I said when I hear from him, I'll set up a call for the 3 of us, and Dylan can tell you exactly what he's going to tell me.
How would you describe Michael Cohen's tone during those calls?
Oh, Michael was very agitated. It looked like he was getting a lot of pressure to get the answer, like right away.
What makes you say that?
He kept on calling, and each time he called, he seemed more anxious.
Did you have an understanding as to where that pressure to find out more was coming from?
Well, I assumed that he had the conversation with Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump was asking Michael Cohen, did we hear anything yet? This is only a theory on my part. I did not speak to Mr. Trump.
Not until you were in New Jersey and you got that call.
That's correct.
Is this a good time to break?
I think it's probably a good time to break, yes. All right, jurors, we're going to go ahead and call it a day as we discussed. Before I excuse you, I remind you not to talk among yourselves or anyone else about anything related to the case.
A reminder, you are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now move ahead to proceedings from April 25th, 2024, Part 59, Morning Session, page 1107, line 8.
Good morning, jurors. Welcome back. Mr. Steinglass?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Pecker.
Good morning.
When we left off, we were talking about June 20th, when Mr. Howard was out in California interviewing Ms. Dougal. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
After Dylan Howard concluded his interview with Karen McDougal, did you and he speak?
Yes, we did.
And what did he tell you?
He described to me who Karen McDougal was. He repeated again that she was a Playboy model. She claimed that she had a year-long relationship with Donald Trump, a sexual relationship. He said that she was 47 years old, and he said that she was a 12 out of 10. And then he said that he believed the story could be true or was true, but she had no corroborating evidence. He said to me she didn't have anything on her BlackBerry, she didn't have any photos, she didn't have any expense reports, that she claimed that she went to Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower. But he believed the story was true. He went on to say that he offered her and her representative $10,000 to buy the story, and it was refused.
Did you have a three-way call that day with Dylan Howard and Michael Cohen?
Yes, I did.
How did that come about?
Michael Cohen was constantly calling me while Dylan Howard was in this meeting interviewing Karen McDougal, and I told Michael that as soon as I hear from Dylan, I will set up a three-way call.
And did that three-way call actually happen?
Yes, it did. Michael Cohen told me to make sure that I used Signal, so I set up the Signal call between myself, Michael Cohen, and Dylan Howard.
And tell us about that conversation, please.
Dylan described exactly what I just mentioned about who Karen McDougal was and all of the details that I just stated, and immediately Michael Cohen said it's not true, which is something that he always said. And then he said, let me check it out and I will come back to you.
Was there any discussion on that three-way call about acquiring the rights to Karen McDougal's story?
Yes, Michael said that, let me just clarify. When Dylan suggested that he offered $10,000 to buy Karen's story, which is including the entire story, which she was claiming and she refused, Michael suggested that we should go ahead and try to buy the story.
And did he say why he wanted to try to buy the story?
Well, first he said the story wasn't true. Then he said he thought that having the story out, and I should add on, Dylan mentioned that ABC was interested in acquiring the story. He also mentioned that a Mexican group made an offer for the story for $8 million. Michael and I both said that although we didn't believe that there was a Mexican group that was going to buy the story, the ABC offer was interesting because they were offering apparently Karen a slot on Dancing with the Stars. But I knew from my experience that ABC doesn't buy stories, so I didn't think they were paying cash for the story. Dylan, also mentioned that Karen McDougal said that she didn't want her story to be published. She said she didn't want it to be the next Monica Lewinsky. She said that she wanted to restart her career. He said that, this is Dylan. Dylan said that she was originally a fitness model. And she was the first female model on one of the covers of one of my magazines for one of America Media's magazines, which was Men's Fitness. This was on a cover in 1999. So he felt that she would be more interested in having American media buying the story than anyone else.
And when you say he in that sentence...
I'm sorry, I meant Michael Cohen. Excuse me, I meant Dylan Howard.
Thank you. And to the extent that it's possible, if you could remember, it's better to use names than pronouns so we don't have to run into that issue.
Okay, I'll do that.
If you can remember. How did your withdraw? What was your initial thought after that three-way call about how to handle the Karen McDougal situation?
I thought we would have to buy that story. I believed exactly what Dylan said. He knows this marketplace. He's the chief content officer for the company. We should. Karen McDougal's attorney was Keith Davidson, and Keith Davidson was one of the major sources for Dylan Howard. So I felt that this story should be purchased.
Now, I think you started to allude to, at the end of the day on Tuesday, a conversation that you had with Donald Trump himself about this. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So my first question is, do you remember when that conversation with Donald Trump happened?
I think it was the third week of June 2016.
Continuing case on
sometime,
trial,
was
the
it after
people
Dylan
versus
Howard
Donald
had
J.
gone out to
Trump.
interview
All
Karen
parties and
McDougal on
jurors
June
are
20th?
present.
Yes.
And after the three-way call that you had with Michael Cohen and Dylan Howard?
Yes, that's correct.
Where were you when you got this call from Donald Trump?
I was at one of my largest investors meeting in New Jersey.
And how did the call come in?
Oh, I was making a presentation and an update on our business, and the assistant in the office came into the conference room and said, "There's a call for you from Donald Trump." And I left and took the call.
And could you tell us about the conversation you had that day with Donald Trump?
Yes, when I got on the phone, Mr. Trump said to me, "I spoke to Michael. Karen is a nice girl. Is it true that a Mexican group is looking to buy her story for $8 million? I said, I absolutely don't believe that there is a Mexican group out there to buy a story for $8 million. And that he said, "What do you think I should do?" I said, "I think you should buy the story and take it off the market."
So when the subject of Karen McDougal came up, Donald Trump described her as a nice girl.
Yes.
Based on your conversation with Mr. Trump, did you have an understanding as to whether he was aware of the specifics of Karen McDougal's description of the affair?
Yes, I did.
What made you come to such an understanding?
I think that Michael Cohen spoke to Donald Trump, which he said he was going to, which Donald Trump said on the phone that I spoke to Michael. And I believe that when Mr. Trump said that to me over the phone, that she was a nice girl, I believe that he knew who she was.
Why would you recommend to Donald Trump purchasing the story?
I believed the story was true. I think it would have been very embarrassing to himself and also to his campaign.
After your conversation with Donald Trump, did you have another conversation with Michael Cohen?
Yes. On the conversation with Donald Trump, he said to me clearly that he doesn't buy stories because it always gets out. And he said to me that Michael Cohen would be calling me. He was going to speak to Michael and he would be calling me back.
Now, you used a pronoun there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry about that.
When you said he in the last answer, were you referring to Donald Trump?
Yes, I was. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So, did there come a time when Michael Cohen followed up with you?
Yes, he called me that day or the next day.
Tell us about that conversation.
He called me and he said that he said, "You should go ahead and buy this story." So I said to him, "I'm going to have Dylan Howard negotiate the terms." And then I said, "Who's going to pay for it?" So he said to me, "Don't worry, I'm your friend. The boss will take care of it."
Who did you understand the boss to be a reference to?
Donald Trump?
When Michael Cohen said, "The boss will take care of it," what did you understand that to mean?
That I would be either reimbursed by the Trump organization or by Donald Trump.
Now, did Mr. Cohen say anything to you on that follow-up call, one way or another, that led you to believe that he was aware of your conversation that you had with Donald Trump when you were with your investor in New Jersey?
Yes, he told me that he was sitting in Donald Trump's office when he called me. I don't know if he was on speakerphone or not, but he said that he was there and he heard.
Did he tell you one way or the other whether he was able to overhear your conversation with Donald Trump?
Yes, he did.
What did he say about that?
He said that, I heard what you said to the boss, and I want you to go forward and negotiate the. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I want you to go forward and negotiate the purchase of the story.
And did he give you Donald Trump's view on that question of whether to go forward to buy the story?
He just said to go forward to buy the story.
Did the topic of the $30,000 that you had already laid out on the Dino shooting story come up during that conversation with Michael Cohen?
At that conversation, we didn't have what the purchase price was going to be for the Karen McDougal story of yet.
Okay.
If I can add,
Sure.
from that conversation, I was authorized basically to go forward and have Dylan Howard negotiate the price and negotiate the terms.
And did you, in fact, ask Dylan to go forward and negotiate the terms?
I did.
Now, you told us that Michael Cohen told you that the boss would take care of it, would pay you back. How did you feel about Michael Cohen's representation that Mr. Trump would reimburse you?
Over the years that I know that I worked with Michael Cohen, I know he didn't have any authorization to spend or disperse any funds from the Trump organization. Every time that we went even out for lunch, I always paid. He never paid. So I don't think that he had any authorization to buy or acquire or spend any monies.
And without Mr. Trump's approval.
Without Mr. Trump's approval. I'm sorry.
During the time, withdraw. You told us that you gave Dylan Howard the authority to go ahead and negotiate a deal with Karen McDougal, is that right?
That's correct.
Was Dylan Howard giving you periodic updates with those negotiations?
Yes, he did.
And did there come a time when you discussed with Dylan Howard some of the terms of a potential deal?
Yes.
What were some of the terms?
Dylan Howard gave me the following terms. To purchase the lifetime rights from Karen McDougal was going to cost $150,000. Plus, Karen wanted to restart her career. She wanted to write for these celebrity magazines. She wanted to be on the cover of some of the health and fitness titles. She had a major problem when her breast implants were removed, and she wanted to write some articles about that in Shape and some of the other magazines. And she also wanted to launch a clothing line, a fitness clothing line, as well as a beauty product company, Beauty Products. And she wanted to, she wanted to be an anchor for the red carpet events with Radar magazine.
Did you update Michael Cohen on the negotiation?
Yes, I did.
How often did you speak with Michael Cohen during the period when Dylan Howard was negotiating this deal with Karen McDougal?
We spoke very frequently, at least daily.
How would you describe his tone?
Michael was agitated. Why is this taking so long? Why didn't we acquire? Why didn't we buy the story yet? Why didn't we finish the agreement? So he was pretty agitated.
Did you discuss with Michael Cohen the manner of who would be paying Karen McDougal?
Yes, now that we had the price, that it was $150,000, I said, who's going to pay for this? So he said, you should pay. I said, Michael, why would I pay? I just paid $30,000 for the Doorman story. I said, now you're asking me to pay $150,000 for the Karen story, plus all these other additional items that she wants to do. I don't have a problem in doing everything else that she requested about writing for the magazines, to be on the cover of the books, the fitness titles. That's not an issue. That I don't have a problem with. The $150,000, who is going to reimburse me for this? So he said again, don't worry about it. I'm your friend. The boss will take care of it.
And again, not to beat a dead horse, but when Michael Cohen told you, don't worry, the boss will take care of it, what did you understand that to mean?
The boss would have been Donald Trump.
And take care of it means what?
That I would be reimbursed either from the Trump organization or from Donald Trump.
Okay. I'm now going to display to everyone what's in evidence as People's 173A.
A reminder, you are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now move ahead to April 25th, 2024, Part 59, morning session, page 1146, line 1.
Now, did you have any discussions with anyone in the Trump camp about Donald Trump reimbursing AMI for the money paid to Karen McDougal?
I had conversations with Michael Cohen.
Did those conversations continue after AMI actually laid out the money?
Yes.
How? Tell us about some of those conversations.
When we signed after we signed the contract and after I paid, after the American media made the disbursement, which we just saw on August 10th, I asked Michael Cohen on a number of occasions how the company would be reimbursed. The issue was the company has this September 30th as the end of a quarter, and we always reflect the proper true-ups of all the various different accounts, and I wanted to make sure that the funds were back and the accounts were properly stated in the quarterly financial statements.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean, true-up?
The records. True up the records. Normally, most companies just only speak about our own, and when a payment or disbursement is made, it is usually put into an expense account, and then after the payment was made, and it is put in the president's account. And then at the end of a quarter here, we were planning that the $150,000 would be recovered and the actual expense would be reported as editorial expenses or other services depending on this. But here the money was recovered. The expense would not be recorded at all in the books other than the articles and the other services that Karen was going to be providing that had billed dollars behind them.
So I don't want to...
Well, if I could clarify a little bit more.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is that is where I kept on discussing this with Michael Cohen. I wanted to explain to him why it was so important to get to be reimbursed. And we had a number of conversations at the end of August, September, and he basically said at the end of each conversation, "Why are you worried? I'm your friend. The boss will take care of it."
Was there ever any discussion, withdrawn, you said you had a lot of conversations with Michael Cohen in August and September. Was there any conversation about candidate Trump actually acquiring Ms. McDougal's lifetime rights from AMI?
Yes. In September, Michael Cohen said that Mr. Trump wants to acquire the lifetime rights of the Karen McDougal story, and I should assign the contract over to him. When I say over to Michael Cohen and I would be reimbursed, the company would be reimbursed. And he also added on that Mr. Trump wanted all of the content that National Enquirer had or developed and retained on Mr. Trump. I told Michael that, these are old files and boxes that are in Florida. The company has been moved to New York City and there's nothing in those boxes but old news articles, magazine articles, old files. He insisted that he wanted those boxes and he wanted the content. And Michael Cohen called me constantly in the month of September to review and to send those boxes to his office.
Did Michael Cohen say why Mr. Trump wanted those boxes and why he wanted the rights to Karen McDougal's story?
Yes. He said that the boss said that if I got hit by a bus and or if the company was sold, he did not want for someone else to potentially publish those stories.
And now, in terms of selling the rights to Ms. McDougal's story to Mr. Trump, did you have one or several conversations with Michael Cohen about that?
We had several conversations.
Did there come a time when you communicated to Michael Cohen a willingness to sell Mr. Trump the rights to Karen McDougal's story, the lifetime rights?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I told Michael Cohen that I would sign the rights over to, I would sign the rights, and he asked me, it's $150,000. I said, Karen is going to be writing for the various magazines and visual sites. She's going to appear on a couple of covers in the magazine. So I value that at $25,000. So I will retain $25,000 as editorial expenses, and I will bill you for the lifetime rights for $125,000.
So did you value the portion of the contract, the $150,000 you had paid that AMI had paid to Karen McDougal, did you value the lifetime rights at $125,000?
Yes, I did.
And was that the price that you were willing to sell the lifetime rights to Michael Cohen on behalf of Donald Trump for?
Yes.
Did you discuss the timing of the assignment of the rights?
Michael Cohen wanted the contract done yesterday, and this is going towards the end of September. So I facilitated to have the agreement, the assignment of the rights sent over to him. I told Michael Cohen that we would have it done by the end of September, first week of October 2016.
Did you see this as a way to recoup the money, or at least some of the money that you laid out on behalf of Mr. Trump to buy the story?
Yes, as I said, it was coming towards the end of the quarter, so I wanted to see if I could get the fund refunded before September 30th.
Was there an invoice prepared for this reimbursement?
Yes.
May we approach?
A reminder, you are listening to a reading of the transcript of the case of the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump, indictment number 71543/2023. To ensure future court transcript readings of this and other cases, we kindly ask you to visit everylegalword.com and support this cause. We now move ahead to April 25th, 2024, morning session, page 1157, line 3.
Did you discuss with Michael Cohen the matter of where the money to reimburse you, where this $125,000 was going to be coming from?
I assumed it was coming. I shouldn't say that. I assumed he was being reimbursed. He was always being reimbursed.
By whom?
By the Trump Organization or Donald Trump.
Okay, I'm showing you People's 162 in evidence. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is that?
This is an assignment from American media to Resolution Consultants assigning the rights to the Karen McDougal story.
Are you familiar with the terms assigner and assignee?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what those terms mean and who was the assigner and the assignee?
Well, the assigner, American media, owns the rights to the Karen McDougal story and has the right to decide to assign it to anyone that they wanted to. And the assignee is the person who's receiving them. So all of the rights that American media had are being passed on to Resolution Consultants.
Who signed on behalf of the assigner, AMI?
That's my signature.
And you were the CEO?
And I am the CEO.
And who signed on behalf of the assignee? Do you recognize that signature?
That is Michael Cohen.
And what was the date of the assignment of rights?
The 30th day, September 30th.
And is that the last day of AMI's fiscal quarter?
And yes.
Did you agree upon a price that Resolution Consultants would pay for the rights?
Yes, $125,000.
Now, even though this agreement was signed, was it ever actually executed?
No, it wasn't.
Now again, I'm going to ask you to be very careful here. Without revealing any privileged conversations with your legal counsel or general counsel, did you have a conversation with your general counsel?
I did.
And based on that conversation, did you come to the decision that you no longer wanted to be reimbursed for the money that AMI had laid out to acquire Ms. McDougal's lifetime right?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you communicate that decision to Michael Cohen?
Yes.
Do you know about when it was that you communicated that decision?
It was the first week of October.
Of 2016?
It was the first week of October of 2016.
Tell us about that conversation.
Yes, I called Michael Cohen and I said to him that the assignment deal is off. I'm not going forward. It's a bad idea, and I want you to rip up the agreement. He was very, very angry, very upset, screaming basically at me. And I said, I'm not going forward with this agreement. Rip it up. And he said, excuse me? Michael Cohen said, the boss is going to be very angry at you. I said, I am sorry, I'm not going forward, the deal is off. And he said, I can't believe it. I'm a lawyer, I'm your friend, I don't understand why you're so concerned. I said, I am very concerned and I'm not going forward, period. And I said, are you going to rip it up or not? And he said, I will take care of it.
To be clear, Mr. Pecker, did AMI ever get reimbursed for the money?
No.
Let me finish the question. Did AMI ever get reimbursed for the money it spent to acquire the exclusive rights to Ms. McDougal's story about her affair with Mr. Trump?
No, we never did.
I'm not sure how we are doing, but this is a good time for a morning break?
Okay, jurors, let's take our morning recess. We'll take about 20 minutes or so.
You've been listening to a verbatim reading of every legal word contained within a publicly accessible, unsealed, and open court document. The reading may have contained minor idiosyncrasies such as mispronunciations or slight stumbles by the reader. It is important to note the document is freely available to the public in its entirety. The purpose of this reading was solely to recite the words present in the transcripts without any alteration or interpretation of their meaning. To support this endeavor, please visit everylegalword.com. Thank you for listening.